Hello, and welcome to a video that will help you align more smoothly with your awakening process. You see, a big part of spiritual awakening is to gradually wake up to more of who we truly are. And as we do, we realize just how much power we have over our experience when we turn our focus away from the outer reality and towards our inner life. We've learned to pay little or no attention to what is going on the inside and try to force life on the outside to conform to our will. This is a habit that becomes instilled in us from when we are little children, and even though there is a whole world on the inside, hidden in plain sight, for most of us, it seems self-evident that the outside reality is where things are happening and where our ability to affect change lies. Most never find any reason to question this assumption. What we are now learning is that there are objective ways of handling our inner lives that will give us much more control over our human experience. Paradoxically, one of the most important factors, if this is something that we wish to acquire, is that we have to be prepared to relinquish the ego's attempts at controlling our outer experience, and that force has no positive effect on our inner experience either. What's instead needed is a conscious, harmonious, open, free-flowing way of approaching our inner life from a place of clarity, real understanding, and ultimately surrender to the flow of life. This is the basis of what we are going to delve into today. In exploring David R. Hawkins' scale of consciousness, we begin to appreciate the intricate relationship between human emotions, levels of awareness, and how we navigate our spiritual evolution. The fundamental concept is that each emotion, thought, and action aligns with a specific level of consciousness, influencing our experience of life and our sense of fulfillment. The key to moving upwards on this scale lies in understanding the emotional mechanisms at play and employing the art of letting go. The foundation of Hawkins' scale starts from the idea that everything, people, thoughts, and events, emits energy, and this energy can either be negative or positive. The emotions we hold vibrate at different frequencies, and each corresponds to a level of consciousness. Hawkins' scale ranges from low energy states like shame, which calibrates at 20 on a scale of 1 to 1,000, to high energy states like enlightenment, calibrated at 700 and above. The goal is to let go of the lower energy emotions and move toward higher levels of consciousness that correspond to feelings like love, peace, and joy. You will more and more naturally gravitate towards these higher emotions as you go through your awakening process, but you can help the process along by aligning yourself with it, cultivating present moment awareness, not resisting what is, and accepting what you need to let go of with as little resistance as possible. How this essentially works is that the higher, more aligned state will become easier to recognize and stay in, while the lower will become more and more dysfunctional and painful. How painful it becomes depends to a large degree on what we've just discussed, how willing you are to align yourself, stop resisting, and let go of what is not in alignment, which the content of this video will help you with if you truly take it to heart and apply it to your experience. To move up this scale of consciousness, it is crucial to first understand how emotions work. According to Hawkins, emotions are the primary drivers behind our thoughts, words, and actions. You will hear this repeated a few times in different ways in this video, as it is important for you to grasp the interaction between your emotions and your thoughts, words, and actions, and how they impact your life. Emotions can often become shorthand for millions of thoughts, and more importantly, they act as survival mechanisms in situations that usually don't require us to fight for our survival. For example, when fear arises, it can trigger an entire series of thoughts aimed at protecting oneself. Yet, paradoxically, it is often the emotion itself and the reactions that follow upon it that create the very distress we are seeking to avoid. The mechanism is quite simple once you see it. Basically, what happens is that an emotion gets triggered by either an external event or by a memory that either also gets triggered by some sort of input or that just pops up at random. Then, The mind starts to tell you things about the emotion, what it means, what it relates to, whose fault it is that you are feeling the way you do, why, and so on. Thus we feed the emotion even more with our thoughts. This cycle happens automatically while giving off the illusion of free choice and continues until something happens to make you snap out of it, or you wake up, realize more or less consciously what is happening, and break it on your own. This process may or may not trigger actions, depending to a large degree on social factors and how well you self-regulate. Why is this important? Well, the higher the frequency of the emotions that drive you, the more your actions become free and in alignment with what truly serves you, and the less you will get triggered into habitual, dysfunctional reactions when things quote-unquote go wrong. If you want to learn more in depth how to let go of blocked negative emotions, we have a whole video on the topic, also based on the works of David Hawkins. There will be a link to it at the end screen. Let's look closer at this. Letting go is the conscious process of surrendering emotions without resisting, repressing, or expressing them in unhealthy ways. Hawkins emphasizes that to let go of a feeling, one must first acknowledge it fully, without judgment. By letting the emotion simply be there and surrendering any efforts to change it, the energy behind that emotion gradually dissipates. Through this process, one can shift from lower states of consciousness like fear, anger, and guilt to more empowering states like courage, love, and peace. Remember that emotions are driving forces behind your actions, and the quality of your actions will be determined by from which emotional state you take them, which in turn directly shapes the reality that you are living in and experiencing. One of the most significant turning points on this scale is the level of courage, which calibrates at 200. This is where a shift occurs from destructive, life-draining emotions to constructive, life-enhancing ones. Below courage, emotions like shame, guilt, and apathy dominate, often leading to feelings of victimization, helplessness, and despair. These lower levels are destructive and self-sabotaging, making it difficult to experience genuine fulfillment. However, as one begins to let go of these negative emotions, courage marks the critical point where empowerment begins. At this level, one begins to face life directly, no longer feeling controlled by external circumstances. This shift allows the embrace of responsibility and honesty, which are essential for further growth. Moving from courage to higher levels of consciousness requires continued surrender. As we let go of the need to control, manipulate, or judge situations and people, we naturally ascend towards states like acceptance, love, and peace. Acceptance, for example, represents a state of inner harmony where one is at peace with reality as it is. There is no longer a need to fight against life or to impose expectations on how things should be. At the level of love, one experiences a profound sense of connection with others and a deep compassion that transcends personal gain. Peace, at the higher end of the scale, represents a state of profound inner stillness and alignment with the universal flow of life. Here, a reminder of the importance of applying these teachings to your own experience is fitting. You need to know what you are feeling, how your emotions feel, how they affect your thoughts, words, and actions, how they cause you to interact with your experiences, and how they affect how the world responds to you. It is so easy to confuse stuffing one's head with a bunch of words, with having actual, practical knowledge based on the reality that the words point to. Let's therefore look at an example where Hawkins illustrates how different emotional responses reflect various levels of consciousness and how this shapes our behavior. Imagine a situation where someone backs their car into yours. Depending on where one is on the scale of consciousness, one's reaction will differ. If at the level of shame, the reaction might be self-blame, feeling incompetent or foolish, no matter who caused the accident. If at anger, one might lash out at the other person, projecting blame externally. However, if one is at acceptance or love, the reaction might be one of understanding, realizing it was just an accident, with no need to harbor resentment. If you look carefully, you see that the lowest vibrational emotions are directed at yourself. Furthermore, can you also see how your emotional state directly affects not only how you handle the situation, but also your perception of it? And can you furthermore see how it will probably also drastically affect the outcome? This might seem self-evident, but how often do we really remember this in the heat of the moment? And how much effort do we really put into being more emotionally prepared when life inevitably throws us a curveball? Getting a firm grip on how this works is important if you want to become free from the tyranny of the automatic stimulus response mindset. In practice, letting go is about consistently applying this awareness to everyday life. As Hawkins emphasizes, many of us have been conditioned to struggle with the world, attack and defend ourselves, and equate success and happiness with effort, strife, and sacrifice. This creates inner conflict and stress, keeping us trapped in lower levels of consciousness. Letting go requires a shift in perspective, where one learns to trust in the natural flow of life, stops resisting what is, and surrenders the need to make things happen. It's worth noting that the process of letting go can sometimes encounter resistance. As Hawkins points out, there is often a subconscious fear that if we let go of certain desires or emotions, we might lose control or fail to achieve what we want. For example, one might cling to the belief that success only comes through hard work and struggle, making it difficult to surrender the need for effort. But, as Hawkins demonstrates, letting go of such limiting beliefs allows us to experience life with greater ease and flow. Here it's fitting to emphasize that this is not about becoming passive or avoidant. On the contrary, once you are operating from higher states of consciousness and life flows more effortlessly, what to do will be much clearer, you will get intuitive nudges about what to do next, and you will be able to take much more effective, conscious, intentional actions from a much more energized, free-flowing state. Thus, you will be able to accomplish much more with much less effort. In other words, this is about active surrender, a conscious choice to release attachments, not out of defeat, but out of a recognition that our true power lies beyond the mind and its emotional reactions. This allows for a deeper connection to our inner, true self, as opposed to being run by the ego. This inner self is inherently peaceful and aligned with truth. In summary, moving upwards on the scale of consciousness requires an ongoing process of letting go. As we release lower energy emotions such as fear, anger, and guilt, we naturally rise to higher states like courage, love, and peace. The journey involves recognizing the emotional mechanisms that keep us stuck in lower states and consciously choosing to surrender those feelings. By doing so, we free ourselves from the limitations of the ego, aligning more fully with our true nature, which is peaceful, loving, and empowered. This path, while simple in theory, requires practice, patience, and a deep willingness to trust in the process of surrender. Ultimately, it offers a roadmap to a more fulfilling, joyful, and expansive way of living. This is a process that requires that we embrace a new perspective on our emotions, from something that we identify with and thus allow to run our lives, to something that happens within our field of awareness, that we are free to relate to and make choices about as we see fit, and that we can have power over if we just understand how. It is important to realize that this perspective doesn't judge certain emotions as good and others as bad. It simply states that different emotional states lead to different outcomes, and that knowing how this works, we become free to choose what best serves the lives that we want to live, the impact we want to have on the world, and the relationships we want to have with other people. Finally, you are reminded to apply these teachings to your own experience. This is especially important when we are dealing with emotions, as they are largely subjective in nature, and you need to get a clear understanding of how they feel to you, how they drive you to think, act, and speak, and thus how they affect your experiences and the different areas of your life. You've now reached the end of the video. Remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for your time.